Hello humans, welcome to The Frontline, a leadership and business podcast brought to you by Peregrine Corporate Services, an Isle of Man-based fiduciary provider. My name is Martin Hall, and thanks for listening. In this podcast, we chat to an array of business leaders from different sectors to learn more about them, their market, skill sets and knowledge. We hope you enjoy. Today I'm joined by Melanie. Thanks for joining me today, Melanie.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Perhaps to provide our listeners a little bit of background, whereabouts did you grow up and your education?
Okay, so I'm originally from London, North London. Went to all-girls school in North London Collegiate School. Then went on to university, got an economics degree, and then I actually did a conversion course to law. So I qualified as a solicitor and practiced property finance, commercial property for quite a few years. I worked for in the city at Allen Overy, and then I emigrated to Switzerland. Okay. So then I had a big change in career direction.
So maybe just to get a little bit of background. So the economic side, what at that stage, what made you go down that route?
I did an economics A-level. I was quite good at it, quite enjoyed it. I just decided that would be a good subject to take at university. I thought it would open a lot of doors. I was quite interested in journalism, so I thought at the time I might go into financial journalism. And I'd done some work experience, like at the Evening Standard and some various publications. So originally, I was never sort of married to doing law. I thought that I would do journalism, and then sort of transgressed into law.
I'd always imagine economics, and probably never got the brain capacity to even get near looking at doing it. But it was just in whatever career you take, certainly in a financial, not even in financial services, that it gives you such a broad knowledge that it just works in many environments. I don't know whether you find that.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, obviously the basic principles, supply, demand, etc., in everyday life, they're everywhere. And they did carry on into some of the legal aspects when I was practicing as well. The two sort of did go together quite well. Although I wouldn't really like to be tested on my economic theory now. It's quite a long time ago. A lot to go down that route, it was interesting. The sort of macroeconomic theories at the time were really interested me, but then applying it to a job, I didn't actually directly want to go into economics as a career. I knew that. I was always interested in sort of finance, more on the entrepreneurial side than going into the city as a trader or an analyst or anything like that. So I always liked writing, which is something I still like doing. I write for publications even now, but obviously I write about social media and about LinkedIn. I've written for quite a few publications recently. I write for The Entrepreneur and Wealth Briefing. I've carried that on.
And that path through law, what took you to that path of deciding to go to law?
I've got to be honest, I got to the end of my university degree and I wanted a well-paid job. And I knew that it would please my parents if I did law. I knew that they would be proud if I became a lawyer. So it just seemed like a sensible decision at the time. Law is interesting. I was interested in property law in particular, actually. I've always been interested in property. So my father was in property, and it was something that interested me. So actually, although it was pretty intense, I did a conversion course for a year, which was intense studying. It was actually incredibly interesting. I touched on lots of different areas and sectors before I decided to practice in property. I completed my training contract at a large international firm. And then I worked for a smaller firm, more locally to where I lived after I had children, before I moved to Switzerland, when I then changed had a complete change of course, just because there wasn't any call for UK property lawyers when I moved to Geneva.
And what was that change when you went to Geneva?
Okay, well, I had a couple of changes because in the interim I had young children when I moved. So I actually ran a cake business for 2 years. So literally, I just used my passion for cooking and baking, and actually, I had done some sort of sugar craft courses, and so I actually did do it professionally, made wedding cakes, etc. for about 18 months until my husband told me to go back to getting a proper job and earning proper money. And then actually I worked again for a law firm. So I worked for a very large Panamanian law firm for 8 years. And I was doing their business development. And that's where I really became involved in using LinkedIn and seeing basically the potential and the advantages to companies, especially those in financial services. And I was the director of the corporate services arm of the law firm here in Geneva for about 8 years. And that was really where I honed LinkedIn and and became just basically more and more skillful at the business development side of using LinkedIn.
Before we just dig into that element then, so that role, taking that business development role, was that, again, seems, was that a daunting prospect, or was that something, again, it seems a little bit different from the law aspect, obviously a lot different from cake making?
Completely different from cake making. But actually, it was obviously a lot more cerebral, and actually, I really enjoyed going into I say in inverted commas. I don't like to say proper work. That's the meaning, but a different, a more of an academic work. And yes, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was completely different. But I enjoyed learning something new. I was working with. It was based in Panama, actually, was the head offices. So it was completely different, learning about Panamanian companies, BVI companies, etc. So I worked a lot with offshore jurisdictions. And again, it was learning something completely different, but it was very much on the business development side. So rather than the legal side, really.
Yeah, that is quite a bit different from cake making. So that you mentioned just a few moments ago, then getting more into the LinkedIn side of things.
Yeah.
I guess it looks a lot different as well. I mean, I'm more heavily using it in the last couple of years, but I guess since the evolution of when you first started using it, it's moved on as a tool.
Yeah, it's permanently evolving, LinkedIn, as they bring out new features. Its complexion is definitely changing. I wouldn't like to say for the better or for the worse, because everyone has a different perspective on this. For me, I don't like the moves that it's making towards becoming more like Instagram and Facebook, because for me, it's a real business tool and it should be used for that. And they've been bringing out some new features recently, which are moving very much towards the social side, which of course it's a networking platform, but it means that it's being used by people less purely for business and more on the sort of like, let's take a picture of my cat or my dog or my breakfast. And that I find quite irritating. And it sort of, it brings down the quality of the content that's on the platform. So you have to sift through your news feed through a lot of unbusiness related posts before you actually get to something that you want to share, something that you want to engage in. And obviously there's ways of curating your feed on LinkedIn, which was obviously when I'm training people, we always discuss, because people actually don't realize that you actually have to basically train the LinkedIn algorithm to show you the posts that you want to see. And you can do that by following and unfollowing people, and hiding certain posts, so that the LinkedIn algorithm sees, okay, she wants to see less of these viral videos, but she wants to see more on the economic side and people posting about current affairs or about social media news, or about what's going on in wealth management. And you can do this by following hashtags, etc.
So that's, I mean, from my understanding, generally with those social media sites, that they're AI driven, so that AI is learning your habits. So you need to basically train it.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to train the platform, but then there's just certain things you can't get away from. This new feature of, I don't know whether you've seen it on your mobile phone, the LinkedIn stories. So
like Instagram.
Yeah, it's like Instagram, and it's really it's really difficult. You're sort of scrolling through, and again, there's all these pictures that they're more suited for people's Instagram or Facebook posts. I mean, from my side, I've done a couple of videos and played around with Apple clips, etc. Because the stories are limited to 20 seconds, which is really short. So either you talk really, really, really fast, or you record something on your phone in Apple clips and then break it up, etc. and put it on. But of course, it's all really time consuming to put out content which is quality, because I'd rather not put out anything than put out something that's rubbish. So actually, in the last week, I was looking at the stories and thinking, okay, how can I really use these so that mine are of value to people? They're not annoying. And they are actually engaging, and for me they actually will show off my brand and what we do. So actually I've just started on a daily basis, literally posting in stories like one LinkedIn tip a day or one statistic, so that they're just bite-sized, so people can have one takeaway a day. Do this, or it's useful to do this, or don't do this, just so that people actually get some value out of scrolling through my story, rather than this sort of, I mean, I sort of do caveat this by saying that it is important to be human on LinkedIn. It's a platform, and so obviously doing videos regularly, it's something that increases your visibility, and people do like to see you as you. So I try and mix up my content so that some of my videos are, let's say, nicely edited with logos and subtitles and sort of bits that zing in and zing out, and they're all nicely edited by my video editor. But then I do some, like I did one yesterday, just impromptu ones, which are just me showing you how to do something, because I'll just be working, or a client will ask me something, and I'll be like, actually, I bet no one knows, I bet most people don't know how to do that. And I'll just quickly do a video on Loom, and show people and post it. And so I try and mix it up so that people do actually sort of see a real person, rather than this sort of curated video image of, just a professional. So, I try and mix up my content.
And before we maybe dig in a bit more about content in general, the transition from the Panama business into your own, where was that? Did you just get to a stage of, this is something I wish to pursue? Again, I think back to the cake aspect, I guess an entrepreneurial side within you. What was the sort of tipping point to go alone, or to start?
The Panama Papers, being honest.
Oh, okay.
So there wasn't really much demand for sort of Panamanian companies and sort of offshore companies, etc. And so the law firm actually pulled out of Europe, and so I was like, okay, it was all very amicable, but I need to do something else. And actually, it was really, it wasn't a huge decision for me, I had all the knowledge there. So, and I actually thought, this has really just prompted me to do what I should have probably done before, but obviously I was sitting in a nice comfy job. It just prompted me to start my own business, which I absolutely love, the flexibility of working for myself, and just build, I just really enjoyed building my business over the last few years. Sort of different parts of it, working with different people, different areas, not just people in finance. I work with a lot of consultants, sort of solopreneurs. It was actually quite an easy transition, as in mindset, and I had all the I sort of had all the knowledge ready to go. So, and I just saw this gap in the market, actually, from when I spoke to people, and I just realized how many people are on LinkedIn, but not using LinkedIn. So they're on LinkedIn and, they have the app and they scroll through their feed, but they're not actually using it to bring in business. And they're not really using their profile, or they don't have their profile set up to bring in business. So yeah, I've just really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed training as sort of a large part of our business is now training as well as generating business actually for companies who employ us to do that. So there's sort of the dual aspect.
To the training aspect, I assume it's going into corporates, speaking with the more senior, I guess, because they're typically the ones doing more of the networking, and then just educating them on the power of it. And
yeah, a lot of it. I also do a lot of one-to-one individual training. So both group training. I mean, everything's online now. So actually, it's been really easy through Zoom and screen sharing. It actually works really well. So I've done, so I do either group training for corporates or one-to-one. People just book one-to-one training for an hour. And we go through how to fully sort of search engine optimize their LinkedIn profile so that they rank higher in searches by Google and by LinkedIn, and how by optimizing their profiles, they can gain more profile views and more people being drawn to their profile.
Yeah, okay. And we're now in nearly November, COVID, where everyone's kind of obviously gone virtual anyway, which I suspect in many ways has helped your business. At the same time, we talked just before we came on there about potentially over time marketing budgets. Everyone's just kind of tightening the belts at the moment because of the unknown. But the flip side, I guess, is as well that the use of a social platform like LinkedIn is ultimately free. So while there's education and output to pay for that training on day one, the return of using it efficiently can be very effective, because ultimately most of us probably won't be traveling for the foreseeable future. So those budgets for traveling were X. You're probably going to need a proportion of that to pay for training for this type of thing. So therefore, we'd like to think you're positioned quite well in the current climate. Not that you want to obviously take advantage of the situation, but really, more than anything else.
Yeah, it's always really difficult when you're posting and you think sort of, okay, you don't want to sound like you're milking the situation for all it's worth, So it's sort of like pointing out the advantages and how you can use it given the situation without, right, we've got the situation, I'm going to try and earn as much as I can out of it.
Absolutely.
And also being sensitive to other people's situations. There's a lot of job seekers out there at the moment. And I try and do pro bono work as well, sort of once a month, optimizing someone's profile and not charging somebody who, will come to me. There's a lot of job seekers who come to me to optimize their profiles. It's just the environment that we're in, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier, again, before we came on, we were just chatting about the free content for I suppose customers and people viewing, whether it's your business LinkedIn profile or your own individual profile, and you feel there's a lot of value in that.
Absolutely. I mean, I would always suggest anyway that using sort of the 80-20 rule, where 80% of what you put out there is value and 20% is promotion. And you always find, say, promotional posts, they will get very little engagement, but they're really good for keeping top of mind of people. So it's a bit like unpaid advertising. So, I mean, when we're working with clients, we would normally put out for them probably 2 promotional posts a week, but the rest would be posts that are of value or of interest to their desired audience. And this is actually one of the key things, is that you put out content that is not necessarily of interest to you and about just what you do, but things that are of interest to the people you want to attract as clients. So for example, I'm not per se in wealth management, but I will often share articles about wealth management and family offices and marketing, because those are topics that are of interest to a lot of my audience. But going back to what you said about giving free content, absolutely. I mean, I probably share at least one guide or ebook or some sort of content like that a week, which is free. Generally, I don't ask people to input email addresses for my content. Occasionally I might, I'm running a business, so occasionally I might, but it's really, I might do that in 1 in 10 pieces that I put out, if that. I think it's really important. It just builds your credibility, builds trust, builds goodwill. And as I said to you before we were recording, that a lot of people say, oh, Mel, you put out too much free stuff, you give away too much. But actually, I find that the return on investment is large, and it's really rewarding because people get used to seeing your content and using it. And then, I've seen it happen. People will ask me questions, like they'll send me private messages saying, oh, can you just tell me, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I never say, oh no, because, book a proper coaching session with me and pay for it. And I always give ad hoc advice. But then I've done that sometimes for people for over a period of like 16 months, 18 months. And then they'll come to me and they'll say, you know what, actually, I want to put in place a proper LinkedIn strategy for my company now. We really want to use it in a defined way to bring in new clients. And then, I've secured a client. So for that bit of free information I've given out over time, I've actually then, I've gained so much more.
Yeah. So when you get, interestingly, when you're dealing with clients, and I don't know whether it's a challenge you find where, I suppose all businesses, when they look at marketing budgets and the return on that, there's various avenues, whether, work's just come from referrals, whether it's just existing clients. How do you help firms or show firms that this particular element of the marketing budget, the LinkedIn side, that you can attach value to it? Or is there always some grey area, should we say?
Well, yeah, marketing as a whole is always, people want guarantees and quantifiable results, and that's something I appreciate, because obviously if I purchase something, I also want to see something material in return. So the way that people usually look at it is that they can see straight away, normally when they work with us, they will look at their LinkedIn and immediately see that their views go shooting up within about the first week, as they'll see that using it on a regular basis, because the key to success on LinkedIn is consistency and regularity and being seen there on a daily basis. And so you will automatically see that side. You'll see more people looking at your profile, more approaches. But the way that we work is that we set up private messaging campaigns for clients. So they are reaching out to people on a daily basis with conversational messages. And it's through that they gain material clients.
So that is the what you refer to as the lead generation side of things? Yes,
but we don't do any paid advertising for clients, because we actually find that we can gain significant results for them and new clients using organic campaigns, just using private messaging. And I'm not talking about spammy messaging. I'm talking about sort of personalized, curated messages that people don't feel have gone to 20 other people.
Oh, okay. And for someone that perhaps, I wouldn't say new to LinkedIn, because I'm sure it's used by most businesses, but somebody wanting to start that path of exploring more of the value, where's the start point?
Phoning me. But second to that, I always suggest that people who want to use LinkedIn properly, to actually use it for business purposes, you need to have a paid account. So people who are using it on a daily basis, they should upgrade to Sales Navigator.
Okay.
And people sometimes are immediately like, £60 a month, what am I going to get from this? But actually, it's really key to not just reaching out to anybody, but making sure the people you're reaching out to are on target for your, let's say, a desired ideal client. I mean, for those people who are listening who don't know anything about Sales Navigator, it gives you the option to really filter down lists of potential people that you'd like to speak to, for example, how much experience they've got in terms of years, their seniority, obviously the companies they work for, the industries. And by the same rationale, you can exclude people. So, you might want to connect with people who are in the energy sector but aren't in a particular area of that. So you could exclude biofuel or whatever. It just allows you really targeted, detailed filtering, which is important when you're reaching out, because you only have a certain amount of invitations you can send on LinkedIn a day. And you don't want to waste those on, if you're generally, we would be reaching out to senior people, so CEOs, partners, owners of firms, founders. And for the most part, you wouldn't want to be then connecting with assistants to those people, because it's a waste of invitations. They're not decision makers.
And just mentioned there a couple of different industries. Ultimately, the process and the philosophy, whatever industry you're in, for you guys, the process is very similar in regard to the promotion side and use of LinkedIn as a tool.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I would say, so the majority of our clients are in financial or legal services or consultants. So, whether they're in fintech on that side of things, or, it completely varies across the board. But having said that, we also have some more random clients. So had a long-term client with a divorce consultancy based in London. So it's not, I deal with, we work with life coaches and executive coaches, increasing their visibility and gaining them appointments. So it's not limited, because as you said, you're completely right. It's the same strategy, really, whatever field you're in.
Okay. And just to go right back to earlier, and the question I meant to ask early on, I noticed I think from your LinkedIn profile, when you were at uni, you used to work on a call center, Nightline call center. What was that experience like? I presume that was a volunteer type of.
It was. Goodness, that was a long time ago. But yes, it was. It was sort of a bit like the Samaritans, but for students.
Okay.
Apart from the fact that you obviously got quite a few drunk people phone up. But it was a really interesting experience. And so I did that for, I think, about a year, actually. It's a bit hazy now. When I was at university, it was about a year. But it was actually really interesting, the training, because obviously they give you training before you go ahead and can sort of let loose on people, because obviously apart from the sort of people who are drunk at university, there are people who phone up with serious problems. So it was quite enlightening and rewarding, actually, at the time, because most of what you do at university is all about partying.
No, absolutely. But I suppose twofold. I mention it because certainly more recently chatting to people on the podcast and just through business, that volunteering, maybe, I don't know whether I'm just seeing it more, but there seems to be more of that, and people talking about, you mentioned the exact words there, the rewarding aspects of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And there's even on LinkedIn, they've brought in all these new sort of emojis and support emojis that you can support posts, and you can, you can advertise jobs that are volunteer jobs. So I think the platforms are obviously conscious of this as well, that people want to get more and more involved. And I think at the moment, especially with sort of the markets and the economic situation worldwide as it is, that there are so many people that need help and also can't afford to pay for help. And as I said, I mean, I do some pro bono work as well with some job seekers, usually sort of once a month. And I mean, it's that rewarding aspect as well, because obviously we're caught up in our sort of revenue sort of streams on a daily basis, which for most of us is a necessity, but it's quite nice to do something that's a bit more charitable sometimes, or at least use your, I enjoy actually using the sort of business skills that I have to help other people.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. And if people want to reach out to you, Mel, what's the best way to do that?
Either by emailing me at melanie@trevisansocial.com or connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm Melanie Goodman and my company is Trevisan.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. We'll add them to our show notes as well. Appreciate spending a little bit of your time today chatting, educating us a little bit more on LinkedIn, which I think we all, certainly in the business world, use more and more. It's been very informative. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening, everyone.